Hello there, everyone. I am Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome to the Mad Science Lab podcast. Today's episode will be my thoughts on the Carolina Panthers with Bob Harris. Bob, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the invite, Aaron. Mad science is the absolute best science. In fact, it's the only science I'll ever dabble in.
That's the only one I know. Learned early from Bill Nye and just been doing it that way ever since.
Fair enough.
Bob, just in case everyone doesn't know, you want to take a second to tell everyone where they can find your work?
You can find it at Football Diehards on the Football Diehards YouTube channel. You can hear me on Sirius XM on the Football Diehards program. You see a theme here. Also, magazines, the Fantasy Football Pro Forecast, which this year will be our 34th edition of that, and the Football Diehards magazine, of course.
Oh my God! How long have you been contributing out of the 34 years?
Pretty near all of them. I think I probably missed the first two or three. And I came on board in '93, I want to say. So I missed maybe the first. I guess their first one was '90. I'm guessing. So
wow, I don't remember 1990. So
I remember it vaguely. It was a long time ago in a faraway land.
Yeah, I was born in '84.
There you go. I started playing in '86, so was
my Lord
playing the fantasy football. It was fantastic
wow,
then, and it's fantastic now.
Yeah, you've definitely got the experience on me.
Yeah, it's a kind way of saying you're old.
No. You've got the wisdom. That's all it means. All right, I won't delay any longer. Let's get into the new look Carolina Panthers. Sorry, as usual, we're 2 seconds in and I have a guest visitor. Yes, hello, buddy. Go ahead. Sorry, that would be an 8-year-old. The Carolina Panthers, the new look quarterback room. First overall pick Bryce Young and backup Andy Dalton. What are your thoughts here? Bryce Young as a rookie, going to be a tough go?
Yeah, I think it'll. Well, look, they've put a lot of pieces in, and we'll talk about some of those pieces. Coaching staff is great, not just Frank Reich, but the assistant coach is great experience. I'm sure they'll do a great job of developing the quarterback. Yet still, he's a rookie quarterback. So beyond super flex leagues, and even then, you're probably taking your chances maybe as a QB3 there. You're going to be able to get him that late. The price isn't going to be exorbitant. And we'll see if he opens the season as a starter. They've talked about, Andy Dalton is there and they're comfortable going with him if they have to. And they maybe they open up the season. I don't see a lot of impetus to not start the rookies in these cases. And I think, especially for a team like the Panthers that's been pining for this guy and they bring in this staff to work with them. And they all had plenty of time to figure out, and they had their choice of quarterbacks. I think this, all the signs to me point to Bryce Young being the starter, if not week one, damn early.
If my memory serves me correct, was Andy Dalton in Chicago for Justin Fields' rookie year?
He was.
So is his job just to travel around and room rookie quarterbacks in the rookie season?
Or to take over for Jameis Winston. I mean, look, there's something to be said for, a veteran presence, right?
Yeah.
And a guy who's a steady hand, who is, I'll go give him the big comment, serviceable, super serviceable even. Let's go with that. I mean, he can do a fine job, and there's things he'll be able to teach young quarterback, or at least, be there to serve as a mentor. And if he needs to play a game or two, it'll be fine. I do think, again, with the coaching staff that they've put together, they've got some great, experienced people there, and not the least of which being Frank Reich. So yeah. I think this is going to be a good situation for him. And I think the key here for me in getting the young quarterback in is David Tepper. This has been, this is an aggressive owner who has been longing for this quarterback as well, and who's basically, when he bought this team, said, this is an NFL is designed, to have parity, and I'm not about that. I'm here to win. So I think getting this quarterback installed and up to speed and moving early, even if it doesn't bear fruit this year, it's certainly possible it could happen early, right? So I think we've all seen the NFL teams can turn things around pretty quickly.
Rookie seasons can obviously be tough on a quarterback, but going into the draft, I said that this was by far my favorite landing spot. Seems to be an improving team, and Frank Reich right there. That's that's the thing I wanted to target. He just has a way with young quarterbacks, and I'm glad that it was Bryce Young who went there.
Yeah, less of a way with old quarterbacks, it turns out.
Yeah,
I can get stuck with a series old guy. So I'm hopeful as well. And look, I mean, it's a path to success for teams, right? Is having that rookie quarterback get some measure of success on the rookie contract, so you can build all the pieces around him before you have to pony up big money.
I actually missed one because I have it shifted slightly. I forgot. Second year, basically a rookie. Matt Corral is still there for now. This basically kills his chances with the Panthers.
Sure.
He's got to be traded or cut, moved somewhere else. Do you think he has any realistic positive outcome here, or is
Chase Daniel will tell you that being a backup quarterback can be a pretty fruitful venture, right?
Yeah, just ask Chase Daniel.
Exactly. So that, so I don't know. We'll see. I mean, last year the injury was an issue. So I don't know that they need to trade him, have to trade him. I don't know that, he's clearly not, doesn't have the high profile background that Bryce Young has. So, I mean, expect you need a good young backup, and maybe he'll be it. Andy Dalton probably has a bit of a shelf life.
Yeah. This running back room here, not quite sure what to make of it. Miles Sanders was a nice pickup. Not quite sure if I think this is good or bad for him. Backups are Chuba Hubbard. Also never really know what to make of him. He has his good weeks. He has his bad weeks. He looks like he could be a thing, and then they always replace him. And Raheem Blackshear, he had his uses last year, played sparingly, but, there's potential. I would say this is clearly Sanders's backfield, but I think Hubbard is going to be used. Like I said, I don't know if this is an improvement. Obviously, the offense won't be as good as in Philly, but I don't know. You think he would get more touches here? I don't know if this is going to be positive or negative for his fantasy outcome this year. What are your thoughts?
I think probably good news if you're a Miles Sanders investor, especially in Dynasty, where, you kind of knew in Philly. I always make the same joke, and I ask beat writers about it every time I talk to them. The Philly beat writers is, why don't the Eagles love him as much as we love him? And you can remember last year he famously said, "Don't draft me in fantasy." And I mean, it's been. I mean, there's been times like even last year. What was it about week 11, maybe a little later in the season? Sanders was one of the top 5 rusher, and they go to Chicago and they didn't hand him the football in a game that they could have run, and against the Bears' lackluster run defense, they didn't hand him the ball until the second quarter. So that probably won't happen much in Carolina. I think he'll be much busier. And we think back to his rookie year, and I know there was some talk about this, I think just this week or the last few days, about, getting him as kind of an outlet, a safety valve for Bryce Young. Look, these are young quarterbacks, could often use these guys, and we'll talk about Hayden Hurst as well, maybe in that role. But if you remember to Sanders' rookie year in Philadelphia, when they had so many injuries at wide receiver, he was a huge playmaking threat, a huge big play threat as a receiver, and has some good long speed that he demonstrated at that time, and didn't seem to get that kind of runs after that. So I think he quashes, he comes in and he dominates the workload. I don't think it's necessarily a 2-to-1, ratio and carries over Chuba, but it's something. It's fairly close to that. I mean, I'll say 250 to maybe 100 or something in that range, right? Or maybe a little more for Chuba Hubbard. But I would expect Chuba Hubbard's days of being a viable play, nothing more than to me right now than a handcuff.
I think Miles Sanders, Bryce Young might have been the perfect rookie quarterback here. If they draft Anthony Richardson,
right,
it completely kills any of his dump off, check down passes. So I think Bryce Young, he can run. He's mobile enough, but it's not really his game.
Right, not the physical kind of player like Anthony Richardson will be going, in terms of running ability.
Bryce Young runs, he might have a very short career. So
true.
Moving on to his interesting room of pass catchers, we have Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, rookie Jonathan Mingo, Terrace Marshall, Shi Smith, and Laviska Shenault. There is kind of a group here of some over-the-hill guys, a rookie, and a whole bunch of young guys who never really seem to live up to the hype in Terrace Marshall, Smith, and Shenault. What do you think of these guys?
They're interesting. Like Adam Thielen, I think can still play. Had 100 targets last year. Got a little beat up, but has been relatively productive. A great nose for the end zone. I think a solid veteran like that. Look, he's not never going to be a frontline fantasy asset more of a wide receiver 4 type option, even as a starter. And like I always say, we can easily, be dismissive of players on bad offenses or, but being the number one receiver on a team is worth something, even on teams that aren't that fantastic or, super, productive offensively.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to be said for Adam Thielen and DJ Chark as well. You know what he is, probably a better best ball play than anything. There may be weeks where he shows up. He's coming off ankle surgery. I know Frank Reich talked about making him, using him or at least teaching him a more well-rounded, route tree, trying to get him to be a more well-rounded threat. So we'll see if he can get there. Jonathan Mingo, a bit of a wild card, right? I mean,
I loved him.
So I'm not a draft Nick, and I don't do a lot of study. I'm watching NFL during college season. So
Yeah.
I rely on people who I know who, do this for a living. The Matt Waldmans of the world, John Lobb, who works with me, and others. And, and honestly, it seems like opinions are mixed. I did like what Jeff Ratcliffe, my colleague at Sirius, said about him, was basically he's kind of like the finished version. If Laviska Shenault is a rough draft, Jonathan Mingo is the version you hand into the professor, right? Yeah. But I still think he has a ways to go to become a consistent producer. And I know there are people out there who say he's not good at gaining separation. There's a lot of physical talents, but
yeah, he's
maybe some of the route running.
Sorry to interrupt you, but great talent. That's the one knock I had on him. Out of the entire rookie class of the rookie wide receivers drafted, worst separation numbers by far, not even close, which is a shame because I really liked him. And he was the 5th receiver off the board, but separation doesn't get it. And that was in college. So
right. Draft capital matters though. And obviously the Panthers have, something in mind for him and, whether they think they can develop him as a route runner and help him gain that separation. The physical traits are obviously there. I think that, again, Laviska Shenault, I think the experiment is probably over for him. I don't expect a sudden emergence there. And I guess, with Terrace Marshall, I mentioned Matt Waldman. I can remember in the draft when they drafted Marshall as, best pick of night 2, right, is what Matt Waldman said. So obviously a talented player who I felt like was going to be buried in a place that was, that maybe he would remain buried in his entire career, a lousy offense. But this kind of gives you some hope that maybe with an opportunity, maybe he gets an opportunity to show a little more of what he can do and some of the traits that made him so impressive coming out in the draft. So, I'm hopeful for him. But again, these are long-term investments. I think, if you play a lot of Dynasty and you're like me, you have receivers on your roster that probably will never do anything and you can never get rid of them. They just sit there and linger. I think Terrace Marshall is one of those guys on some of my Dynasty rosters that I hope turns into a thing. But I'm not betting on it. Same with, Shi Smith, just a guy so far to me. I know he got some run last year and saw a fair amount of playing time. But of course, Demir Burr, the truthers are out there. They will be very excited. I am not among them.
You know what? Listening to that little breakdown of the wide receiver room leads me to believe I should be drafting Adam Thielen at what will be a significant discount because it sounds like if he stays healthy, he's probably going to end up as the number 1 in this at the end of the year. And he's pretty much free. Dynasty, it's obviously skewed because of age, but the Dynasty drafts I've done, he's gone in whatever. If it was 25 rounds, I've taken him at the end of 25. 30 rounds, he goes in 30. Obviously, in redraft, it won't be nearly as skewed because of his age, but he's going to fall to the double-digit rounds pretty handily.
Still a free square, essentially, right? I mean, that's,
Exactly.
I think any wide receiver 1 for any team, and, sometimes we look at a quarterback situation that we don't see as ideal, and we overplay our hands, and we, overreact to that as fantasy managers. And, look no further than last year where you saw guys like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett because we didn't think Geno Smith or Drew Lock would be good, or Amari Cooper because we were concerned that Deshaun Watson wasn't going to play. You look at some of the prices we were getting for players like that, and then you look at the production we ended up getting. Oftentimes the production outdoes expectations when the quarterback situation isn't ideal.
Yeah, and it's the age. So far, everyone I've seen just, Thielen's old, he's washed. They either want to go with Chark or they're all in on Mingo. I've seen more Terrace Marshall taken than Adam Thielen.
And I think so too. And on Chark, he does have a value and he does do something very well. But like I said, it's more of a, for me, more of a best ball kind of play because you don't know in those weeks. If you're looking for someone who's maybe your wide receiver 4 or 5, in a redraft, I don't know why you wouldn't go with Thielen other than you're scared of the age. And he has gotten beat up a little bit, but it's not like he's injury prone or has become brittle in my estimation. I'm a little injury agnostic though.
Moving on to the tight end room here, we have a player I think is going to be a value if this offense is able to move the ball with a rookie quarterback. Hayden Hurst, I think this was a great spot for him. Tommy Tremble behind him, but I think I'm going to own a pretty good share of Hayden Hurst. If in the leagues, I like to go early, try and get my Kelsey or Andrews, but in the leagues where I miss out, or if I need a tight end in like a Scott Fishbowl scenario, I might have a handful of shares here of Hayden Hurst. Like I said, it's all going to depend on if this coaching staff can make Bryce Young come around and be serviceable, or even if Andy Dalton is serviceable. Whoever it is, I think Hayden Hurst could be a pretty solid value at tight end.
Right. He's sort of coming off of, like, if you look at current best balls, I'll use the ADP from the last couple of weeks, and he's like tight end 21 on best ball 10s. I mean, I'll take that.
Wow. Yeah.
You're right. So, and it's exactly what you said. If you miss out on the I think most of us are chasing that top tier, or the top tiers. We can break it down, the Kelsey tier, which is now around one, almost a lock. I haven't seen him go outside round one in a draft this year. I've done 40 some drafts, and he has not gone outside round one. And I don't know that he should. Leverage over the field's a thing, people. But beyond that, I think, if you miss out on that, I'm all in on. I think Andrews is getting exciting again, just with Lamar back and a new offense. And we saw what Todd Monken, the coordinator in Baltimore, the new coordinator, did in Georgia, and used a lot of 2 tight end sets, by the way. So Isaiah likely truthers can take heart as well. But I just think when you get outside that range of top guys, TJ Hawkins is in there for me, and I'd be more in on George Kittle if I knew Brock Purdy was going to be healthy. I mean, there's a whole range of guys I like. Darren Waller going to be the de facto wide receiver 1 and for the Giants. But once you get outside that top group, I mean, you're kind of throwing darts a little bit anyway, especially if you're, I mean, like there's guys that I would much rather take chances on. I think Hayden Hurst is a guy that maybe is going to get you consistent production based on, the rookie quarterback checking down, needing a safety valve again. Sanders can't do all that. So I think it would be useful to have Hayden Hurst. It's kind of a late round. If you wait till very late, then you need to get 2 tight ends. He's not a tight end one.
No. Yeah, I think it's going to be the leagues you miss. Based on some of the early ADP and even my casual leagues I see, looks like the top 5 or 6 tight ends and that group of top 5 or 6 quarterbacks are flying off the board. There's no more late round quarterback this year, it seems. They are all flying off. So if you
there can be, but but if you want one of the top guys, I mean, you're talking, even all the way down through, I'd say, into the 10 range and, the top 10, maybe even 12, you're going to have to draft well before the double-digit rounds hit.
I had Dario Offstein of Player Profiler on earlier, and he was saying that in his research, the quarterback 7 was typically going, or was going this year, where quarterback 2 or 3 has been typically going. So I think that's how much earlier they're going.
But it kind of makes a little bit sense, right, Aaron? I mean, you're seeing, if we're trying to if fantasy football is, some based on NFL game, you look at where the NFL is investing its assets, right? And both, free agent money or just money, period. It's in the quarterback position. It's in the passing attack. Wide receivers, running backs have fallen by the wayside in that regard and have become values, and they're becoming greater values in fantasy football too, because they're just available later. They're getting pushed down the ranks a little bit by all the receivers going early.
Absolutely. Like you said, I typically use the best ball or underdog ADP right about now as a pretty solid reflection of at least the first 5 or 6 rounds of redraft leagues. Based on where you think these guys are going to be drafted, who's a player you're likely to be targeting in a lot of leagues?
I have a ton of Miles Sanders already. I could look at my shares right now because, even shortly after the signing, he was still going outside the price was still 26, 27, running back 26, 27. I think when they first signed him, he was down in the 30 range, and he's risen up a little bit. I haven't looked this week, but it hasn't gotten overpriced. I just think, I'm chasing opportunities, right? There's not a lot of feature backs left. So where is he risen up to right now? At least on best ball 10s, which is I just happen to have up in front of me. So it's an easy look here. He has risen up to, he's still at 25. And I'm looking at my date ranges. Oh, that's the full season. I thought I had this set up for the last month or so. But let's look at the last month just since the draft. I think that how much he has risen here. I know how to work a computer. I'm good at
Eh,
this.
fair enough.
So he is still running back 25 over the last 2 weeks.
Wow. You got a lot of shares. I see that's something I had to be more aware of is checking out my my exposure to a player. I'm writing an article on it actually. I always like to compare, I'm sure you do too, your rankings versus
Sure.
ADP, but more so, I find these sites are specific. I found in a lot of my rookie drafts on Sleeper, there'd be players like Jaden Reed that weren't going normal. They'd have an ADP of 999. So there were holes in some of the different sites' ADPs. So I found, last year, I think on Yahoo, all my Yahoo teams were terrible. And I looked, it was because the ADP gaps, the differences there, both of them were, for me, I owned a ton of Steelers. I owned Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris everywhere. So my worst leagues were there because I had like 90% exposure to those two players on Yahoo and they busted. So I try to make sure, like you said, you have a ton of shares of Sanders.
Well,
so
that's part of the fun of doing all these best balls is, number one, it's, like being a mad scientist. You're in the laboratory and you can work on different builds and, but I do tend to find myself gravitating towards certain players just because I love the prices. Yeah. Right. So I think over time, but almost even without looking, you get to a point where you start to feel overweight on a player and you're just going, oh, wow. Yeah. I've been drafting an awful lot of him. Let me find a different path. And so I'm sure I'll get that way with Sanders. I'm not there yet. I just checked here. I think I'm still a little below 20% on my best ball 10s. I haven't checked on Underdog. I'm playing a lot of both. So, and I will continue to play a ton of both. So best ball to me, and you nailed it. It's, the first 5 rounds, I don't see really a ton of difference. Maybe you go a little more boom bust early, but you're still mitigating that risk with let's say you get a Tyreek Hill in round 1 and you feel like you want to, kind of like even things out. There's going to be maybe weeks where he doesn't show up or whatever. Just using him for example. There are probably other ones, but you grab a Keenan Allen or somebody that gives you that steady production, to kind of fill the hole. But I think, as you're going through these things, you start to get that sense of, wow, I have an awful lot of this guy. I think I probably should start shying away. One of the things I'm trying to do in best ball this year, I think that maybe we all learned a lesson last year. If you had, if I was in 100 drafts and I had 10, 15 first picks overall, they were all last year Jonathan Taylor. Yeah. It won't be all the same guy this year.
Yeah, mix it up. Yeah. The same could be true of the opposite way. There's players that I just don't have any shares of. It always seems to be Kyle Pitts. I don't hate Kyle Pitts. This year so far, it seems like Calvin Ridley. I'm never comfortable. When Calvin Ridley goes off the board, he's never the highest player left on my board. It's not a subconscious or it's not a conscious thing. I don't go in and say, I'm going to have no Kyle Pitts. I just end up with no Kyle Pitts.
I think the part of that is like this year I have no Alvin Kamara yet, just because I don't like the uncertainty. Same, I don't have any Javonte Williams. There'll be players where, look, until I get some clarity, I don't feel like I need it. And since I'm going to be drafting from February through into September, I feel like, at points I will get the clarity I need or not, or get the clarity that I need to continue to avoid. But if I have that uncertainty, but beyond that, I think sometimes it's just, there's players where I just don't agree with the price where, DeAndre Swift would be an example right now, even still after the trade of the Eagles. I don't see him as a top 20 running back. I'm just, I don't feel comfortable. I mean, like he's finished there. I get it, but I'm chasing the opportunities. I'm chasing the workload. So I'd rather wait till a little later than he's going and grab someone who I feel a little more comfortable with the workload.
All righty, to wrap it up here, who are you likely to avoid on this roster?
I'm sorry, Bryce Young. I'm going to avoid the rookie quarterback. There's a lot of guys. I'm probably avoiding everyone not named Miles Sanders and Adam Thielen only at the right price. I will grab Hayden Hurst if I put myself in that position. The rest of them, I don't want anything to do with Chuba Hubbard. Even if I have Sanders, I don't think I'm going to grab Chuba Hubbard as a handcuff because I don't know if the offense is going to be that great that I need to have him.
Fair enough. All right. Well, thank you, Bob. That was wonderful. Once again, you want to tell everyone where they can find your work?
At Football Diehard on Twitter is where you'll find links to everything. The Football Diehards YouTube channel, footballdiehards.com. Use the promo code Diehards. We'll give you a 15% discount because we're nice like that. And watch your newsstands for the Pro Forecast and the Football Diehards magazine. If you listen to Sirius, you've probably already heard me. I'm on the Football Diehards show. Just dial it up on the on-demand.
Wow, you've got that down pat. Boom, 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 boom.
It's all Football Diehards. It's really easy. I've set myself up for success on these plugs.
Yeah, no kidding, eh? All right. Well, Bob, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Aaron. I appreciate the invite, man.
Yep, no problem. It was a pleasure. All right, this concludes my thoughts on the Carolina Panthers with Bob Harris. Once again, I am Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and this has been the Mad Science Lab podcast. Thank you, Bob, and have a nice night, everyone.